the receiving room, the holding room, thinking that now we're going to begin our tour. And we overhear them on the phones, ICE officials on the phones, and then we hear we're arresting the mayor.
Okay, so we have a bunch of new information as far as Homeland Security versus the 3 members of Congress who may be arrested. We are now being told in a brand new interview that these 3 members of Congress, they were given access to the ICE facility and they were about to begin their tour. However, they decided to walk off and block off the mayor of Newark, New Jersey from being arrested by Homeland Security.
They said, "You're trespassing." I said, "No, I'm reminding you, I'm a federal official. I'm a member of Congress. I'm here with 2 members of Congress to do this this tour." Some ICE officials or some officials, I don't know who they belong to, did come and greet us and took us to a holding room where people come to wait to be addressed.
Okay, so Homeland Security has responded, and this right here is why these members of Congress may be arrested. Homeland Security just posted their visitation policies for these members of Congress. They are allowed to visit the facility, and they will and were given access. However, when it comes to the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, he's not protected like the members of Congress are from just entering this facility.
They had apparently invited the mayor in to talk. And when we got to where the mayor was and the other officials were, the official said to him, "You are trespassing. We need you to leave the property." He promptly, quietly, without any resistance, with all the dignity of the mayor of the greatest city, the biggest city in the state of New Jersey, left the property and went behind the fence where there were protesters.
Now hold on, we have the camera footage of the very calm exchange, and we can see under the policies, unless the mayor made a special request to Homeland Security, he's not allowed to be on the private property.
The largest city, you are here on private property,
All right, this is the last, I'm not, ma'am, listen, this is the last warning.
Oh, hey, Congresswoman, let's show some respect. Show some respect.
Calls her ma'am.
You have no...
And remember, I want to remind everyone, these members of Congress are claiming that Homeland Security, they escalated everything. And by the way, we have not even made it to this part yet, where Homeland Security was being blocked off by members of Congress from arresting the mayor of Newark, New Jersey.
The state of New Jersey, left the property and went behind the fence where there were protesters. And we were heading back to the receiving room, the holding room, thinking that now we're going to begin our tour. And we overhear them on the phones, ICE officials on the phones, and then we hear we're arresting the mayor. And to which we said, "For what? He's not on the property." And they wouldn't respond to us. And they opened the gates and they sort of pursued the mayor with a number of officers who were masked and had guns. And so instinctively, the 3 members of Congress went to shield the mayor.
That's right, you heard that correctly. The Congresswoman is fully admitting the situation de-escalated, then re-escalated because they ran over and blocked the mayor of Newark, New Jersey because they overheard he was being arrested even though they were about to conduct a facility tour, yet they are putting all of the blame on Homeland Security. So now this is all starting to make sense, because when they all make it behind the gate to follow the mayor, Homeland Security is saying, "What are you guys doing?" You can actually hear how confused they sound.
To a congresswoman like that, and you gotta put your hands on me, you will pay. You guys are creating this. You will. And this harassment, you know that's wrong.
So as you can see, all of this is starting to make sense. Now we know why the Homeland Security officers were a little more lenient than people expected. I mean, they were already shoved by the members of Congress, and Homeland Security was even saying, "What are you guys doing?" This is because Homeland Security actually worked with these members of Congress, and believe it or not, after all of this, they still gave a tour to the members of Congress, by the way.
So we did the tour. We saw that the elevators really weren't working. We saw that the place was relatively okay. It had some dirty areas because they're just hiring people and they're waiting for ICE to okay the people to be hired even at the lowest levels. And
these members of Congress are claiming Homeland Security escalated all of this, yet somehow they were nice enough to give this tour to these members of Congress. And by the way, the facility happened to be pretty good. It was a little dirty, but not bad.
And I'll tell you this, I can guarantee you this facility has higher detention standards than any New Jersey facility. This facility has highest detention standards in the industry. You compare that to any jail in New Jersey, and you'd be shocked how high these detention standards are.
Okay, so now there's another detail these members of Congress are claiming they didn't know about. There was a bus that was showing up with detainees that were being blocked off because of these members of Congress.
No, it's not the proper way to do it. There's a proper way to conduct oversight. There's a way to make appointments, go in this facility. You don't break into a facility when a bus full of criminals are being, brought into that facility. This is about the safety and security of the employees. This is about the safety and security of the illegal aliens. And it's about the safety and security of the public. You just don't make an entry that gate. You don't make an unauthorized entry while they're moving a bus of criminals in the facility. There's a right way and wrong way to do it. And look, I've said from day one, you cannot support ICE. You can go ahead and support sanctuary cities, but you can't cross that line. You can't cross the line of impediment. You can't cross the line of knowingly harboring, concealing an illegal alien. You certainly can't trespass in a facility that's contracted by the U.S. government to house criminals.
And again, we do have the right to protest, but as far as obstruction or impediment, that is where you cross the line, and that is why Tom Homan is super upset with these members of Congress who may be arrested. And by the way, they are afraid they could be arrested.
Congresswoman, have you heard from DHS since this incident took place? Are you anticipating further legal action that you might be arrested?
If I'm arrested, it is an amazing absurdity because we did nothing illegal. We did nothing wrong. Am I concerned? Of course, because this is an administration that doesn't really care about the rule of law, the Constitution, and it has been abusing its power since day one. I have not had any contact with DHS. I have heard that they have had spokespeople on who've said that there's a possibility of arresting us, but I've not heard anything further.
That right there is another very interesting piece of information because, again, those members of Congress, they are allowed to enter and be at that facility to conduct oversight. That's actually their job. However, not getting any information from Homeland Security as far as the potential that they may be arrested or charges will be pressed against them, that's a little scary.
It was a very tense situation. It unfortunately did not have to be like that. They created that confrontation. They created that chaos.
So did your agents create this confrontation?
Absolutely not, Lawrence. They were just simply doing their job and trying to keep the facility safe. Body slamming, body ramming, striking an officer, pushing, shoving, whatever you want to call it. It sure looks like assault. People should watch that and decide for themselves. There's no place for that, especially members of Congress. It is so beneath them to be treating law enforcement like this, our brave law enforcement. We thank them for keeping that facility safe and keeping Americans safe every single day.
So, Tricia, they later got a tour of the facility. What happened once they received a tour? Did they see anything that was wrong?
Well, Lawrence, you'll probably remember that part of the reason that they were protesting apparently is because they were saying we didn't have the right permitting, we didn't have the right inspection, which is absolutely false. We had all the right permitting, all the right fire code inspection, electrical inspection, safety inspection. But in a press conference afterward, just showcasing that they want their 15 minutes of fame, they actually said that the conditions in the facility were quite good and up to snuff. So it's pathetic, and we won't stand for this in this administration. We're not playing games with the safety of our law enforcement.
And again, everyone was focusing on the body slamming aspect. We were all focusing on the physicality of all of this, but we all did not know that these members of Congress the whole time, they were granted access. That is their legal right. That is their job. But then they decided to leave their access and go and talk to the mayor and go and talk to Homeland Security about arresting the mayor. Then they went back onto private property, and you can see the tone of the Homeland Security spokesperson. They are very, very upset, and now we know why when you bring it all together. And speaking of somebody who's also upset, here's what AOC has to say about the situation.
And now what DHS is trying to say, again, they're using public intimidation because they know that they cannot come for us all. They know that they cannot come for us all. And recently what they said is that DHS is allegedly looking into arresting members of Congress who were showing up for their legal and constitutional obligation to conduct oversight. If anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security. It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on someone, on Representative Bonnie Watson-Coleman, on Representative or any of the representatives that were there, you lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem. Because the people who are breaking the law are the people who are not abiding by it. And it is enshrined in the law that members of Congress who show up to ICE and CBP facilities are required to be granted access. Legally required.
And again, AOC is absolutely correct. However, you'll notice she's not mentioning the mayor and the Department of Homeland Security. Their problem is not with the access. AOC is missing the whole point. The problem that the Department of Homeland Security has is that that mayor did not have access. He was not allowed to be there. He crossed that line, and then there was an impediment, there was obstruction, there was assault, and when you look through this form, nothing on this form says those members of Congress have any jurisdiction over any law enforcement as far as stopping them from making an arrest. That is the problem, and that is why we might see an arrest of these members of Congress. AOC missed the whole point of this.
That'd be like breaking into, a state prison, not going through the proper protocols. This creates a huge safety crisis, and these elected politicians know that. This isn't about the due process. This isn't about constitutional rights. This is about politics. They simply don't want these people removed from this country. They don't want immigration enforcement in this country, and that's what it's all about. They can try to hide it all they want with these protests around the facility, but we can continue to do what we're doing. That facility's got some of the worst of the worst. We're keeping President Trump's promise to the American people that elected him for the sole reason of securing the border and removing these public safety threats from the communities. That's exactly what they're going to do. They can stand out and scream all they want. They can trespass, they'll be arrested. If they impede, they'll be arrested. If they knowingly harbor and conceal, they'll be arrested. We're going to do this job for the American people.
Now, you may have noticed we're not hearing too many Republicans talk about this. Well, I finally found one, and here's what he has to say.
We saw Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrest the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, outside a federal detention center, and they're now threatening to arrest 3 Democratic members of Congress for allegedly assaulting or touching an ICE agent there on the scene. I'm just curious, should ICE be arresting or even threatening to arrest members of Congress?
I mean, that's obviously a very drastic move. I would only do that if they were complicit with a crime. I don't know all the facts behind this. If they were just visiting a detention center, that's I've done that many times. If they're disrupting law enforcement, that's another question. So, we can peacefully protest in this country, but you cannot be complicit with gang violence against our law enforcement. And I think perhaps that's what it comes down to.
And I do find it very interesting, even he's saying that's a very drastic move if you do arrest members of Congress. Again, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but DHS has been rather radio silent, as we used to say in the military. They're being very quiet about this. Obviously, they are responding with their policy forms, and they're responding by reposting all of these interviews, but they're not actually saying whether or not they're going to press the charges. They are saying we can. And the more and more and more footage we are seeing, and these members of Congress keep reappearing on television, it doesn't look too good for these members of Congress. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. I will definitely update you the more information we get. God bless, and we'll see you all later.